The story begins inside an abandoned building, where a FBI agent team advanced through dusty corridors and broke into a hidden room. Several masked figures were there performing a ritual intended to wake up a malignant god through forbidden black magic. Their chants filled the air like a trembling echo of horror. Far from that scene, a boy named Lu saw every moment of that ritual within a terrifying dream. When the chants became stronger in his mind, he woke up scared, squeezing his jaw. His hands clung to his own hair while he struggled to calm down. The room around him seemed dark under the yellow light of the lamp, and the table next to the bed was covered with strange drawings, sketches of monsters that he had grabbed before. He took the glass of water and drank quickly while checking his cell phone, thinking about the outside world and how dangerous it had become. Before he could get back to his senses, a violent gust of wind tore through the room. Papers, objects, and even his blanket flew through the air, as if they were dragged by an invisible force. The chants tightened his chest, approached the door carefully, and noticed something strange. The window he had closed before going to sleep was now completely open. The discovery left him restless. He felt that he needed to go back and close it before someone saw the drawings on his table and confused him with a cultist. When he left the room, he paralyzed. A corpse was on the floor, and a group of people with black tunics and covered faces surrounded him. The vision drained all the heat of his body. An alert instinct exploded within him, ordering him to run away. As he moved, the enraged figures perceived him and ran towards him. Undoubtedly, Lu ran back to the room, closed the door with a blow, and sat down against her while the group pushed from the other side trying to knock him down. His trembling voice threatened to call the special division. At the moment the threat came out of his lips, the attempt ceased immediately. A heavy silence dominated the outside. His jaw was tense as he tried to guess if they had gone, but he knew that calling the special division was the only logical step. He focused on his cell phone and marked the number without noticing the shadows that moved behind him. Countless dark hands began to climb out the window, like reptile silhouettes. He informed that he was in danger, but the call did not receive any response. Confusion and fear mixed within him. Then the window broke. A colossal creature crawled into the interior of the room, its innumerable limbs scratching the walls. It looked like a distorted fusion between human and spider, swollen with countless hands that trembled with fury. The monster looked at him with hatred, recognizing him as someone who had witnessed his sacrifice to the spider god. The creature spat insults, treating him as an inferior being, unworthy of living. Pure terror invaded Lu. He took a chair and hit it against the monster, screaming with rage and despair, as if that fragile object could save him. The monster laughed at his useless struggle, having fun with the idea that a chair could kill something born from the ritual of a god. Another violent cry resounded from the creature, and frustration suffocated him. Lu realized that escaping was his only option. He ran to the kitchen while the monster was advancing behind him. He closed the door with keys seconds before the creature collided with the wood. The Visagra trembled violently while demanding that he leave. The boy's hands trembled uncontrollably. He believed that his end had come. There was no way out. Thoughts about his unfinished life overwhelmed him, and he even regretted never having married. Then a voice emerged within his mind, calm and ethereal, asking if the guest wanted to live. Lu hesitated and looked around, entangled in confusion. A radiant presence flowed through the broken, soft, divine and luminous window. A figure similar to a goddess materialized before him, as if she had been woven from pure light. She presented herself not as a divinity, but as something much stranger. She claimed to be the system of the strange editor, and that she had chosen Lu as her guest. The scene continued with Lu staring at the radiant woman in front of him, directing her confused thoughts while trying to understand the meaning of that mysterious system. Her mind struggled with the idea that she herself could be an evil god. The woman, now revealed as the mother of the system, raised her hand, forming a magic winking aura in her palm. She claimed that her identity did not matter, and that the moment he lived was only his initial reward. A chest appeared before him in a flash, posing firmly on the ground. The mother of the system explained that, among countless worlds, 5 basic materials would be chosen at random, and with them, the guest could freely combine what he wanted to create his servant monster. Before Lu could react, flows of translucent windows of the system opened around him. Each window showed symbols and marks that he had never seen, and he observed them in silence, trying to understand their meaning. The mother of the system continued explaining that the growth of her servant would completely depend on how she combined the materials. After creation, she would receive an innate ability of the monster itself. She also revealed that her hand was the chaotic hand of the creation of the stranger. The compliment left him disconcerted, rubbing his cheeks with a confused expression. Without knowing if he should feel shame or pride, he forced an uncomfortable smile while the compliment resonated in his mind. His attention suddenly changed when he heard violent scratches again at the door. The monster outside continued to knock and scratch, trying to knock down the kitchen. He realized, alarmed, that he had almost forgotten the danger lurking. The panic grew inside him as he mentally cursed it. Incredible. His mind ran with the idea of fusing all the materials offered. The mother of the system responded by reminding him that she could try that combination, but only if the materials were compatible. If they weren't, the result would be like mixing the gopher and coffee, something completely inedible. The strange analogy confused him, but clarified what he should do. A magical interface expanded around him as his aura exploded upwards. A magical circle lit up under his feet, marking the activation of his power. He gathered energy in his hand and called, inside himself, the nameless monster that was about to take shape. He summoned him to offer his heart, attend to his call and obediently respond to his creator. He embraced the identity of a saint whose blessings spread throughout the world like a fragrant wind. With the hand of chaos, he distorted the very order of destiny. Finally, he ordered the birth of his first monster. The summoned creature materialized, taking shape as his first creation. Fear Globe, 2 stars. His skills arose in luminous descriptions. Intimidation, an innate impact at the level of the soul that induced mental terror in everyone who faced it, weakening even those who were strong enough to resist. Fertile brain, a trait that allowed him to absorb vitality from the forms of nearby lives, allowing him to heal and evolve. When enough vitality was accumulated, Seed of Infernal Fire, a power that granted access to infernal fire capable of burning enemies with corrosive darkness. The evaluation concluded with excellent classification, followed by the basic, good, excellent, perfect and supreme categories. Even with such an impressive set of skills, Luju felt an unexpected disappointment. His thoughts were filled with disbelief as he tried to accept that the monster he had created, a being in the shape of a balloon, would be his first servant. The creature itself reacted with a confused presence, as if silently asking for its own existence. In the end, despite the contradicting feelings, Luju called the fear balloon Xiao Yi, marking the beginning of his strange society. Luju turned to the mother of the system with evident frustration on his face, trying to understand what that creation really was. He lamented internally that he wanted something different, perhaps a human-headed balloon, instead of that strange balloon with the appearance of Halloween floating in front of him. The mother of the system responded with serene approval, declaring that the creation was not bad at all. An irritation rose in him as he wondered what a creature like this was. The tension changed abruptly when the monster from the outside finally forced his entrance through the broken door. His threatening presence filled the room with hostile intent. Xiao Yi immediately reacted, trembling with fear while hiding behind Luju, leaving him momentarily stunned. The monster he had created seemed even more cowardly than him. The invading creature released its murderous intent in a violent wave of hostility, ready to destroy him. At that moment, the mother of the system announced the system's response. A classified servant as excellent activated a higher achievement reward, granting an additional ability, solidification, forcing him to choose what power he wanted to solidify. The emotion exploded when he noticed that he also had the ability to fight. Without a doubt, he chose to solidify fertile drainage and infernal fire lathe. A flammable lathe materialized in his hand, crept into dark fire. He hit the monster with a powerful impact, sending a shock by the creature while trying to understand what had happened. The satisfaction filled Luju, and a feeling of triumph ran through his body when he recognized that it was his own power. The monster perceived that transformation and identified it as an awakening. Luju directed his thoughts to the mother of the system, asking himself if he really counted as one of them. Before he could assimilate the moment, the creature attacked again, declaring that the awakening interfered in the sacred mission, and therefore they had to be eliminated. Xiao advanced immediately, intercepting the attack when floating in front of Luju, and wrapping its rope-shaped extension around the monster's neck. Luju recognized that action internally, satisfied that Xiao had finally been useful, and played his role well. The imprisoned monster fought desperately, dominated by fear and confusion as he tried to understand that it was Xiao and Luju turned the infernal fire lathe again, the blow tearing the creature apart, and breaking its body into 2 parts. A violent scream marked its end. A notification from the system appeared in front of him, congratulating him for obtaining a twisted spider poison bag, classified as a rare, a star, before it could completely process the reward. A distant scream cut off the chaotic silence. Someone desperately begged for help. Screaming over another monster, Luju ran outside and leaned on the balcony looking down. An immense horde of fierce monsters filled the area. Countless and overwhelming, the impact spread by the moment he realized how many had gathered at once. Chaos spread through the city while people hid in their homes. Trembling as giant spiders invaded the streets, a man crouched in a dark corner, desperately begging for his life and thinking only about the family that he might never see again. Another citizen stared at the monstrous creature clinging to the building, unable to believe that a giant spider had appeared in the city of Kong. The panic grew everywhere, while people wondered why the special division had not yet arrived to help. Observing everything develop, Luju felt something much more disturbing. He realized that the automated City Kong defense system should have activated immediately, but nothing had happened. The system's silence seemed unnatural, making him suspect that the entire network had been sabotaged. He understood that, if no one stopped the monsters now, the entire city would soon collapse, and the arrival of the evil god's avatar would mark the end of everything. By his side, Xiao was trembling uncontrollably, consumed by fear. Luju reprimanded the little creature, unable to believe that a two-star monster could be so terrified. He pushed Xiao forward, reminding him that his power was more than Luju's strength. Xiao retreated, whined and then tripped, but hearing Luju's insistence lit something inside him. Energy began to gather in his small body, similar to a balloon, and slowly a confident smile formed as his power grew. Meanwhile, the entire special division was fighting battles around the city. Agents were shooting at the monsters that were advancing, screaming desperately while their weapons were unable to stop the horde. Some were screaming for the oldly, waiting for reinforcements. In the midst of chaos, the spider priest named Guza made fun of the humans, laughing as he declared himself a servant of the spider god. His mocking presence sent waves of despair through the division. The leader of the squad ran to reorganize the battlefield, ordering that Squad 2 retreat from the skyscrapers. Officers awakened advanced, and released their skills one after another, cutting winds, exploding earth and powerful force bursts of awakened force. But none of that left even a scratch on Guza. The monster continued to laugh while the agents watched in astonishment, unable to understand how something remained completely intact after so many attacks. The confusion spread when they noticed that General Li Xuan had not yet returned. Despite the fear that dominated them, the commander forced everyone to maintain their positions, insisting that the monster could not reach the West District, ordered continuous suppression, demanding that the awakened and soldiers maintain their attacks to win as much time as possible. Guza continued to mock them with contempt, treating each defender as nothing more than insects under the feet of the spider god. One of the officers finally lost patience, accusing Guza and his god of having exceeded all limits. At that moment, a lightning bolt fell from the sky hitting the monster. Guza looked up, surprised, trying to understand who would dare to attack. So daring. The flames dissipated enough to reveal a silhouette. The attacker was no one less than Luyu. At the top of the building, Luyu remained firm after placing his mask, standing with Xiao and by his side, and the aura revolving around him. He declared, with a cold presence, that the enemy in front of him was not worthy of knowing anything, and that only the teacher of that creature had the right to come and ask. Guza responded with growing anger, interpreting Luyu's attitude as pure arrogance and saying that he should not believe in eternal God. Guza believed that no lightning could intimidate him and claimed that a lower creature like Luyu was not worthy of being mentioned next to the great spider god. Luyu threw Guza's thoughts away like nonsense, observing that the creature seemed to have completely turned into an insect. Even his brain seemed to have stopped working. Guza then ordered that all the spider monsters devour him. All the monsters advanced against Luyu without a doubt. The chief of the officers noticed the danger, and shouted at Luyu to run, calling him younger brother. Luyu remained firm and ordered Xiao to activate the siphon aura. As before, Xiao responded instantly. His aura turned into a spiral, and flames burst from within, cutting and annihilating the monsters one by one until they were all dead. All the officers were shocked at the overwhelming power. The chief of the officers, at Nito, recognized that level of strength and identified it as the power of a starry morning rain. Guza reacted with agony, moaning as the truth strengthened. He was in front of a true morning star. Even so, he insisted that he had not become a morning star demon, and refused to accept death. Xiao smiled and tightened his power even more, grasping Guza with more strength. Guza was flinching, unable to accept the inevitable. A second later, Xiao completely killed Guza. Upon seeing this, the chief of the officers remained paralyzed, crushed by the force he witnessed. He asked about that power, thinking it was too strong, and questioned whether that mysterious figure had helped them and therefore should be considered an ally. The chief of the officers then looked up at the building and called Luyu, asking him to wait and asking his name. Luyu stopped, confused, without understanding why everyone around him was asking for explanations. This time he reflected that if he revealed his identity, he would perhaps be recruited by the special forces for some millions. But he rejected the idea immediately, remembering that he was a social prisoner. He feared that reporters would begin to appear at his door every day. He feared that, if the scientists discovered his ability to use powers without being awakened, they could capture him for investigations. To avoid all that, he simply replied that he had no name, nor did he need it. He was just someone in the world. Having said that, he disappeared. The commander watched him leave and reflected on the phrase of not having a name and being forgotten by the world. The commander asked if he could be some kind of ancient being. At that moment, General Li arrived and called him. Upon seeing General Li, everyone was surprised and greeted him. General Li explained that he had received the emergency signal and ran to evaluate the situation, asking if the spider priest had escaped or if the team had dealt with him. The commander informed that the threat had been eliminated, but clarified that they had not been the responsible. General Li repeated the description that he had heard, someone forgotten by the world, and analyzed the implications. The commander asked if there was any problem with that detail. General Li carefully evaluated the information and concluded that, if what that mysterious figure said was true, and considering his casual position in front of an evil god, then that individual was most likely of forbidden existence. The commander was stunned, reacting with disbelief at the idea of a forbidden existence, someone even stronger than an evil god. Luyu continued walking down the road with Xiao and floating by his side, reflecting on how the night had been full of events. He remembered that half an hour earlier he was still a common person, and the sudden change in his life continued to resonate in his mind. He remembered that he had almost forgotten the altar built by the cultist group, an altar that had not yet been dismantled. Luyu considered that Xiao had instantly exterminated those cultists. But the altar and offerings were still intact, and that worried him about the possible problems that could cause. He determined that he wanted to continue living a good life in the city of Hangsha. He continued walking, looking for the place he had in mind, until he finally reached an area soaked in blood, and found the place he was looking for. He entered the room where several people had tried to invoke evil, the same place where he had killed them before. He informed Xiao that he had already killed them, and asked him to rest in peace. Then, Luyu used his infernal fire whip to burn the bodies, cleaning up all the remains. When the flames decreased, his attention was directed to several black diamonds. He took one and realized that it was not a black diamond, but obsidian, a material generally used to make talismans against evil. He noticed that the quality was not bad and believed that it would be worth a good price. His approach then changed to a nearby statue, which seemed strange to him because it emitted a slight perfume. To make a statue, the material seemed of high quality. He called the system and requested to use extract in the statue. The system granted permission, allowing him to start the extraction. He activated the power of extraction, and the process was completed quickly. Just after finishing, the ground under his feet began to crackle. Luyu felt a wave of confusion while wondering what was happening. And even Xiao reacted surprised. The floor collapsed completely and fell directly into a spider silk web. The contact with the silk left him even more confused, and he realized that that room was connected to another space. His eyes opened up when he looked up and witnessed the terrifying presence of the evil god Atlich floating right above him. The terror dominated him instantly and forced himself not to look up or directly at the entity, convinced that he would die instantly if he did. A painful noise filled his mind, becoming unbearable, as if his head were about to break, forcing him to cover his ears. At that moment, the system descended in front of him holding a large scissors. He cut the spider silk while announcing that he had detected the presence of an evil god and was starting the protection mode. Luyu looked at the system with disbelief and called it, excited. The mother system announced that everything was about to break the barrier and leave the world of dreams, starting a 10-second countdown and asking the guest to get ready. The countdown began 10, 9, 8, 7. On the other hand, Lu Yu felt an unexpected happiness when he realized that he did not expect the power of the system to be so dominant. As with a single cut he broke the connection between the evil god and his body, tearing the mutation inside him. Before that, he thought he had nothing more to fear. A funny smile appeared on his face while he was addressing his brother Atlich, thinking that, since he rarely had the opportunity to go there, Atlich should at least allow him to take some local specialties. Atlich responded with furious screams. A portal opened in front of Lu Yu and the mother system, which had reached the final stage of the countdown. Lu Yu said goodbye to Atlich's mockery, and the portal dragged him, Xiao and the system back to his room. Lu Yu realized that he had successfully returned and was surprised to notice that he was really in his room. The mother system congratulated him for escaping after facing an evil god and confirmed that the system's feat had been completed. The survivor who faced an evil god unlocked level 2 of 5. With the level of current authority being level 1, a window of the system notified about a fragment of the Dajin Lumbo, describing it as a fragment of the pre-linked bridge, and sculpted in a statue of the evil god created by cultists. It could open the cup of the dream world, but because it was only a fragment, it could only be used once. The system asked to evaluate if it wanted to face it directly. Lu Yu asked for the meaning of authority. The mother system explained that, with each level of authority, the guest would receive a random treasure chest of the corresponding level. The content had no limit of rarity, but it could also come empty. Lu Yu reacted strangely, questioning what kind of super chest bet was that, since it could even come empty. Lu Yu then asked for help to identify the material. The system's window informed that it was the thread of the spider god, a 5-star material. It was a thread originating from the body of an indescribable evil god that looked like a spider, but it was not a spider, an impossible divine entity to look directly at, because anyone who did so would inevitably perish in madness. The thread possessed a divine, mind-blowing power. Lu Yu was surprised to discover that it was a 5-star material, especially since it was only a single thread. He imagined that, if he managed to pull out a tearful behavior, or something similar of the evil god, next time he could obtain at least a 6-star material. He thought that even some low-star materials were capable of creating a monster at the morning star level, with power to destroy a city, allowing him to obtain a tenth of the power of a subordinate. If he got materials of a sufficiently high level, he imagined if he would be able to become a god. He laughed at the thought and remembered not to exaggerate, questioning if becoming a god would really be that simple. And even if he did, he thought it wouldn't make so much difference since the evil gods seemed to exist everywhere. Suddenly, someone knocked on the door and he immediately reacted. A woman announced her presence, saying that she was from the special division, and asking her to open the door calmly. Lu Yu quickly warned Xiao, and that the special division had arrived, and asked him to hide quickly. He opened the door and found an inspector, who presented herself as Officer Ning of the special division, asking if he knew that cultists and monsters had attacked the building. Lu Yu noticed the weapon in his hand, and the way he held it, as if he were ready to shoot someone so nervous. He explained that the monsters had knocked on his door earlier, but he hid in the closet and pretended not to be at home. Escaping from the disaster, Officer Ning evaluated him internally, seeing that there were no signs of distortion or evil aura in his body, initially determining that he was only a civilian. She asked to inspect the room and he allowed it. Lu Yu commented on his destroyed wall and asked if the insurance would be reimbursed. In addition to consulting if the monster spiders had been eliminated, Ning replied that being alive was enough, and that they would be reimbursed. He added that the fat man in the neighboring apartment was miserable, had been melted like a candle wrapped in spider silk. Lu Yu responded with a simple yes. Ning made a call, and reported a survivor on the 7th floor, without external wounds or evil aura. Zhang, on the other side of the call, responded satisfied, thanked him for the hard work, and told him that he could return to the Information Communication Department the next day. Lu Yu sighed, saying that he was very tired that day and complained that they never hired more people. So, in critical moments, they needed to divide the team to cover it all. The worst thing was that they didn't even pay extra hours, and when they returned, they still had to deal with an extremely childish boss who was carrying a yellow towel. Lu Yu then informed Ning that his microphone was still on from the phone. An order arose that Ning was sent without returning in 5 minutes, and to write a report of self-criticism. Ning panicked and began to apologize to the Zhang team, admitting that she was wrong and ran out immediately. She left the room in a hurry. Lu Yu closed the door with a key and took a deep breath, relieved that they had finally left. Then suddenly he felt confused, as if he had forgotten something. The narrative returned to the previous moment, when the wind had blown through his house and had thrown everything out through the air. At that moment, a drawing that was on Lu Yu's table flew out. A girl picked it up, looked at it and smiled after the horrible night. The entire rescue team worked tirelessly to put out the fires that spread throughout the destroyed area. In the midst of the chaos, Lu Yu continued to sleep, completely foreign to the efforts outside. On her side, Xiaoyu watched the news, which reported that the night before the North District of the city of Hang had been attacked by spider cultists, leaving 115 victims and 74 survivors. While continuing a follow-up investigation, and still half asleep, Lu Yu complained of the noise. Xiaoyu floated close to his face trying to scare him, but he only hit him with his finger and ordered him to leave. He suddenly entered the bed overdressed. Xiaoyu looked confused, as if he did not understand what he was doing. Lu Yu's eyes then went towards his destroyed wall, where the spider monsters had erupted the previous night, leaving a huge hole. He wondered if it had been the wind and admitted to himself that he needed to call someone to repair that. After recomposing, he changed clothes. On the other side of the district, the same girl who had collected her drawing the day before was standing at the top of a silent building, looking towards her damaged room. Meanwhile, Lu Yu left her house and looked around, remembering that the repair company was nearby. At that moment, the same girl called him from behind. When he turned around, she asked why he was in the West District. He explained that his house had been attacked and that he had gone to look for a repair. She immediately asked if he was hurt. He assured him that he was not. Then he asked if he wanted to have breakfast with her. He smiled shyly and accepted. They walked side by side and bought 2 loaves of bread while they ate. Lu Yu asked in silence why she was following him there. He reflected that, despite having been companions for 3 years in high school, they only greeted each other from time to time. He said to himself that they were not even of the same type of world. He remembered how everyone admired him, praised his beauty, his athletic skills, saying that he was just like the kids, and remembered how they saw him, the orphan who only drew in silence, without anyone understanding his drawings. He forgot the memories and said that he should not think about the past. He needed to focus on the present. Then he remembered that the previous day he had collected many materials of those spider things and thought he could create another new monster. He scratched his head. Suddenly something returned to his memory, and he turned around, surprised. He quickly warned that he had something to solve, and that he was leaving. She replied saying okay, and that she would see him next time. When he entered his apartment, he looked at Lu Yu's photo on his cell phone and smiled, imagining if he had been too daring, or if he had raised suspicions. He calmed down by saying that he would not discover him, and that he would not in any way. He took his finger to his mouth, and made a malicious smile before entering completely. He whispered Lu Yu's name already inside his room. The extension of his obsession was evident. The entire space was covered with Lu Yu's photos. On the walls, on the pillow, on stuffed animals, on posters. Unwrapped belongings of him were carefully stored in drawers and drawers. She opened the closet, took out Lu Yu's jacket, pressed her face against her, inhaled her scent and whispered her name repeatedly while she was satisfied. Her behavior showed that she liked her much beyond normal. A fanatic obsession. Meanwhile, Lu Yu continued walking home. The wind that entered through the window was extremely cold, making him wonder if it was really that cold that day. He finally got home, stretched out and felt a deep relief, expressing that the long day had ended, and that someone would come to repair the house in the next few days. The news continued to spread. Xiao tried to play around him, but Lu Yu left him irritated and tired, indicating that he had not even had lunch, and did not want to be bothered. Then he remembered that he needed to verify exactly what materials he had obtained yesterday. He opened the system window and examined the list that appeared. Distorted poison sac, rare. Classification 1 star. Quantity 1 odd distorted poison sac, normal. Classification 1 star. Quantity 5 odd distorted egg of mutant spider, rare. Classification 3 stars. Quantity 1 odd silk of the spider god section. Classification 5 stars. Quantity 1. The list continued with mutant distorted spider egg. Complete description: Morning Star class. Originated from a distorted spider about to evolve to Morning Star class. Corrupted by enormous energy of flesh and by the aura of an evil god, resulting in an extraordinary mutation of potential, different from its original form and still not hatched. Its star classification was based on potential, not on real power. Its reactions showed incredulity when realizing that the creature was female. It was confused by the fact that a being with a hoarse voice and full of scars was totally different from what he expected. It processed the idea that females should not be seen that way. Then, it reached the space of the system and found an egg. Immediately perceiving that it was something alive, it called the system in its thoughts to ask if it was present. And Mama System appeared instantly, confirming its constant presence. Luyu wondered if the egg counted as a living being, and if it could still be edited as material. Mama System explained that unclosed bodies or embryos were still considered material, and that only fully formed creatures, capable of breaking their shells, could not be edited. Understanding that, Luyu realized that he could not keep the egg for a long time. Xiaoyi agreed in silence, and Luyu caressed his head gently to reassure him as a good boy. Then he asked Mama System if the materials gathered could be used to strengthen Xiaoyi himself. Mama System reported that his authority as a host was still insufficient for that and recommended that he manufacture a new family. He accepted the advice, relieved because that meant that he would not have to worry about Xiaoyi staying behind regarding future monsters, and ordered the system to start editing. He ordered the extraction and editing of the broken pocket watch and the poison bag of the distorted spider. The editing failed, leaving him confused and surprised. While trying to understand the reason for the failure, Mama System clarified that the process still absorbed the material but left only an empty shell. He explained that the pocket watch was contaminated with the blood of another god of evil, and that most of the gods of evil repel each other. He mentioned an example that involved distant sentient entities, the distant banker and the lord of the deep-sea nightmare, who had attacked because their gods hated each other. Luyu reacted confused about the concept of involvement by power of the legato. Mama System explained that, when his authority increased, he would be able to manipulate causal connections between gods of evil and allow them to coexist within the same family. But for now, the best method was to integrate lower-grade counterparts. He accepted that and observed that the silk of the god of evil was a high-level material that he preferred to keep for another occasion. At that moment, he ordered to use the spider egg and the distorted poison bag and proceeded with the editing. He fused both materials, and while he was doing it, he asked if 2 materials were the limit. The system window then notified that he had obtained his second family, the egg of the spider shadow of the void. The system classified it as not occlusionary with an excellent 4-star rating, and claimed that the countdown for the occlusion was 1 month. Luyu verified the attributes and read the descriptions. The poison bag of the void could inject toxin from the void, capable of making the body of the object collapse and disintegrate. The time mark maintained a subtle connection with the time river, and purified its own aura, allowing it to block most forms of external detection. The shadow strangulator ability allowed the spider shadow of the void to produce a strangulator for each certain amount of absorbed shadows, being able to exist up to 10 at the same time, working both as killers and servants capable of fusing with the shadows. The vacuum bag ability allowed to open a personal space pocket to store non-living matter, with the internal space increasing as the creature grew. He noticed that the creature had a star-class potential in the morning, and recognized, impressed, that the attributes were extremely strong. The time of occlusion of a month perfectly combined with his plan to investigate the levels and divisions of the Awakened World faction. Mama Systema congratulated him for editing an excellent monster, informing that he had unlocked the Elite Editor Conquest and received the reward of 1/10 of the power of the Spider Shadow of the Void, along with the option to solidify 2 abilities within himself. In panic, he instinctively reacted, but before he could completely process the situation, his body began to inflate like a balloon. His eyes turned red, and he realized, alarmed, that he was about to be torn apart by the power of his own family. Luyu inflated like a balloon and began to float in the air, struggling while he perceived that he needed to act immediately or he would be destroyed by the power of his own servant. He quickly thought of the idea that, if a balloon was about to explode, the fastest method would normally be to let the air escape through the opening. But he understood that that would not work, because it was not a common balloon, and could not release energy through the mouth or nose. He tried to remember that the surface of a balloon was not completely sealed, and had countless micropores where the air escaped. But even that seemed useless, because at that speed, when he finished releasing energy, the grass on his grave would already be 3 meters high. Without any remaining option, he prepared to try an unexpected option. He released the infernal fire whip. The whip exploded around him, forming a red ring flashing around the building. People outside watched the phenomenon in shock, murmuring confused when they saw what seemed like a paranormal event, and some wondered if cultists of the gods of evil were causing problems again. Meanwhile, the infernal fire whip stabilized Lu Yu's condition, and he realized that it had worked. He had expelled the excess energy from the body. He noticed that, although he had burned enough energy, both his strength and his limits seemed to have improved since yesterday. Mama Systema recognized what had happened and commented that her body was just a little fragile, asking if the transmission of energy should be slower the next time. Lu Yu agreed internally, wanting it to be much slower because he did not want to explode again. Mama Systema then asked what skills she chose, and immediately decided to choose him, injecting the power selected in her body. She said that, as spiders had 8 legs, she would call that little deer, and invited her to meet her new champions. A sudden knock on the door interrupted the moment. Lu Yu reacted surprised with someone's arrival again. He opened the door and saw the officer standing there. She greeted him and asked if he had seen what had happened outside. He answered by asking what had happened, and she was surprised that he did not know this time. She questioned what he was doing, and why he was soaked in sweat, and he explained that he was exercising. She passed next to him, and insisted on registering the room. Lu Yu tried to protest, saying it was his room, but she advanced just as carefully and checked everything. She did not find anything and concluded that it was strange, as the report indicated that it had been in that building. She determined that it must have been a false alarm, and apologized for bothering him again, calling him handsome. He responded lightly, saying that cooperating with the police was the duty of every citizen. She reminded him not to exaggerate with the exercises, because no girl liked the smell of sweat so much. He recognized the advice and called her Miss Ning. She seemed to have fun, saying that it was not bad to at least remember her last name. After she left, Lu Yu closed the door with a key and felt relief, thinking that he had finally freed himself from it. But the relief did not last long when he realized that Xiao had disappeared. He opened the door again and saw Xiao, and already in the arms of Officer Ning. He felt immediate frustration, and mentally reprimanded the little animal, wanting him to return immediately. Then he entered a store where rabbits, rats and hamsters were kept, noticing that the owner was busy playing, and he accidentally told him to look at Gusto and let him know if he wanted something. Lu Yu agreed and perceived that the owner would not pay attention to what he was doing. He looked at a rabbit, and decided internally that the rabbit brother would be the chosen one. He used his technique of shadowing the rabbit, releasing a black aura from his hand that penetrated the animal's body, and filled it with negative energy. Lu Yu was satisfied because it seemed to have worked. He reflected on why he was doing that, and remembered what he had discovered that afternoon. After reviewing the system window, he focused on the name of the shadow deer, and wondered if having that ability meant that he could also obtain a human form. The idea moved him, because a deer with a human appearance would not be associated with the spider cult, and it would be easier for people to accept it. He imagined that a deer like that could fight, tank and work for him, and that later, he could even have several subordinates giving him massages and cooking for him, similar to the ghost army. Lu Yu summoned an animated shadow. His emotion disappeared when he thought of where he would obtain humans, realizing that it was a terrible idea. If he tried that, he would undoubtedly be hunted by the human army and the awakened. That is why he went to the store to test with animals, and did not expect it to really work. However, he also realized that, with the small amount of shadow obtained from the rabbit, it was not enough to form a human form. Then he approached the owner and asked how much the rabbit box cost. The owner ran to the surprised and strongly reacted to the idea of selling the whole cage, explaining that there were 13 rabbits, each costing 100. As Lu Yu was a great buyer, the owner offered the entire cage for 1.200. Lu Yu reacted thinking it was expensive, but the owner insisted it was not, and claimed that the outside world was so chaotic that those were already market prices. Lu Yu added another order, including the bird cage and the white mice. The owner immediately classified him as a super client and offered everything together with a 10% discount and free delivery. Lu Yu accepted the deal. The owner began to count and said that the animals were lucky because they would eat and drink well with the great buyer. The scene changed. Lu Yu, taking the rabbits and the birds home. He used black magic on them while trying to summon shadow servants, and admitted internally that what he was doing was really sinful. He believed that the amount of shadow gathered should be enough to summon servants. With determination, he called the shadow servants. 3 servants appeared, and Lu Yu ordered them to stay still to be able to observe their structure well. However, when he looked into his eyes, he felt a strange sensation through his body. His body weakened and began to faint. Mama Systema appeared immediately, took Lu Yu's hand and announced that an unknown aura of existence had been detected. He began to determine the level of danger, and activated a self-offset response system. Mama Systema used her power to destroy shadow servants, and recreate them from scratch, because they were harmful to Lu Yu. Lu Yu panicked internally and felt that he had barely survived. Believing that Mama Systema had saved his life again, he realized that he just wanted to assimilate consciousness in the shadow, and almost became food for that unknown existence. Mama Systema crossed his arms and claimed that the being had not yet noticed the host, reminding him that he was more careful in the future. He told him that he should not merge imprudently with certain energies, even if those energies did not have malice, even if they were energies that he had obtained. Lu Yu processed his words and concluded that at the bottom of the origin of any type of energy, there was a being like that. Mama Systema replied that he could not reveal that, and asked him to raise his authority as much as possible. Lu Yu admitted that he still did not have the qualification to explore the truth of this world, and wondered if he was still safe to get in touch with that now. Mama Systema confirmed that life and death were in his hands. Lu Yu then turned to his shadow servants and asked what skills they had. Observing the tremendous capacity of occultation, and extremely weak energy fluctuations, he ordered them to attack. And when they advanced, he used a single movement to knock down the three of them. He remembered that he had spent a few thousand on those servants and could not let them die, so he activated the infernal fire expulsion. He reviewed his experiment, and thought that he had divided everything correctly. As the three animals were extracted separately, he calculated that the bird-type servant was equivalent to about 1.2 of Zhoushen, and the rabbit-type servant was equivalent to about 1.4 of Zhoushen. He considered that if he used the shadow of a tiger, leopard or bear, the force would be even greater. He wondered if using the shadow of a human would increase the intelligence of the servant. However, he still thought that using something of his own kind was something unpleasant. He noticed that the servants had become smaller, and then he saw them transform into a liquid form. He instructed them to investigate any abnormal situation in the vicinity and report immediately. A note from Drac Comiker accompanied the scene. He realized that this organization was very convenient, and that the servants were smarter than he expected. Lu Yu lay down on the bed and reflected that, although he now had enough strength to protect himself, and servants capable of murder and information collection, he still wanted to be able to advance further. His own power came entirely from monsters, and he had never received adequate training or cultivation methods. He felt that having strength but not knowing how to use it was a limitation. He wanted to completely understand the field of the awakened, and learn training cultivation techniques. He knew that the awakened were not only powerful, they also possessed a lot of sealed and mysterious information. He believed that if he knew that, he could obtain even more materials. He recognized that Zhoushen and the others had weak performance, but they only represented inferior and not superior awakening, those capable of rivaling, or even surpassing the stars of the morning. Mama Systema suggested that, since he was so curious about the world of the awakened, he should ask on the internet. Lu Yu doubted because there were many false news out there, and wondered if it would really help. Mama Systema told him to try and see it. The scene changed to Lu Yu's friend using his laptop and searching online. He searched what Lu Yu had said and found several questions, such as, can the awakened extend their life expectancy? What do the awakened normally eat? And the descendants of an awakened will also be awakened? He saw more questions repeating the same topics, asking if there were big real figures, if the awakened had their own private forums, or places dedicated to communicating among themselves, and commenting that their world seemed very mysterious. When seeing the question of an awakened repeatedly, the descendants could also be awakened, he reacted confusedly and discarded that as superficial questions. After spending some time searching everything online, Lu Yu saw that his friend finally called him. The conversation began with Lu Yu's friend talking first, followed by Lu Yu. The narration kept exactly the same sequence of words, while the friend, with noisy confidence, insisted that the unparalleled genius name was supposedly a profile of a powerful and superior awakened, claiming that the awakened only discussed high-level issues, such as killing monsters. Lu Yu realized internally that the friend had fallen into the trap, but immediately complained that there was nothing about any forum in his profile. The friend reacted frustrated, admitting that Lu Yu had touched the weak point and saying that, if he were already rank 2, he would have registered long ago. The friend explained that it was necessary status and real power to enter that forum, and that it was necessary to be at least a rank 2 awakened, to send your information and get an account. after which he could publish and even exchange high-level materials. Lu Yu thought about sending his information, but he felt that that would put him under military surveillance, concluding that he would have to steal an account. Then he complained internally that the friend did not respond and wondered if he had noticed his action, insisting on himself that there was no way because he was a professional awakened. The friend soon accused him of speaking the same as always, but with the voice of a swindler. Doubting whether he was really in the forum of the awakened, the friend continued with insults and justified his behavior, saying that, for an intellectual, that was not a scam. It was called artistic embellishment. He refused to let Lu Yu discover his deception, and he seemed desperate to show something real. He asked him to pay attention, and mentioned that he was showing off in the night market, insisting that only the awakened could go there. He tried to show off more, saying that the whole city knew something important. His words began to get stuck, while he was trying to convince Lu Yu not to doubt him. The narration continued while he showed only the cover of an invitation and declared that anyone could mock him. He claimed to have received an invitation to a banquet of the Federation where they would present a beautiful princess. He asked Lu Yu to look at the real proof, warning that he would delete it in 5 seconds, ending the message with an idiot goodbye. Lu Yu immediately blocked him. The friend insulted him by calling him a son of a bitch. When the call ended, the scene changed to the night. Lu Yu went to the night market meeting, wearing an unusual mask, but many other people also wore masks of different animals. He looked around and thought that his clothes would be special, but it seemed that everyone had the same idea. Chicken masks, dog and monkey were everywhere, and someone even wore a decat. The men in the line in front of him bought their tickets, while Lu Yu noticed that even the goalkeeper was a rank 3 awakening. Realizing that he would have to use a trick to activate his aura, the 2 men in front reacted shocked, commented on the overwhelming presence, and said they felt like they were going to die just by looking. They complained that the meeting was supposed to be just a common night market, and wondered why there seemed to be a terrifying monster there. Lu Yu realized that he only tried to act mysterious for a moment, but he exaggerated. He realized that everyone was looking at him. He approached the guard and presented his invitation. The guard recognized him instantly, and assumed that he was also there by the night market, saying that he would enter directly. Lu Yu asked if he didn't need to wait in the line. The guard insisted that they would never wait for him and continued asking him to enter. The guard added that the boss was very hospitable and would be delighted to meet him. Lu Yu entered and thought it was worth being strong, since even the goalkeeper knew who to respect. As he advanced, he observed everything and thought that this was really the night market. Inside the market, a man exhibited his products in a loud voice, announcing that mountain boar fangs could turn into weapons. Lu Yu observed and thought it seemed casual, almost like a street vendor. Exploring more, he saw a man warning another not to look closely, telling him to be careful or the boss would be irritated. Lu Yu continued walking and thought that, even though people were moving away to let him pass, that made him feel important. But no one dared to approach. He wondered how he should interact with the awake like this. His eyes then saw someone selling items related to survival, including a guide called How to Survive in the Forest 2.0, followed by spiritual cultivation techniques for the awakened and basic knowledge books for the beginners of awakening. He immediately thought that basic knowledge and brown spiritual techniques were excellent, and perhaps exactly what he needed, but he was forced not to show emotion and act naturally. Lu Yu took a bottle of poison and asked the seller about it. The seller explained that it was called the poison of 5 graves and described that the secret techniques of the 5 burials came from the ritual of transporting the 5 ghosts aimed at the 5 types of unjust deaths: wounds by knife, drowning, burning, hanged and being buried alive. The seller explained how they refined bodies in poisonous corpses and how the Society of the Holy Corpse extracted the poison to create a new toxin. He emphasized that drinking an entire bottle would even leave monsters of a star level seriously injured in the morning. He added that the poison of the 5 burials was extremely lethal for meat and bone monsters. Lu Yu evaluated the description and thought it seemed powerful, but poisoning a star monster in real combat in the morning seemed more problematic than simply killing. He concluded that it was a good object, but pointed out that if the smell could not be masked, it would be useless. Then he said that the books were useless and asked the seller to pack them. The seller was surprised and asked if he was carrying the books for the youngest generation in the family. Thanking the purchase and asking for a spiritual coin, Lu Yu stopped, not knowing what a spiritual coin was or how it looked. The seller insisted that there were 13 manuscript copies, with many annotations, and repeated that a spiritual coin was undoubtedly worth it. Lu Yu continued confused, observing while two nearby men were laughing, saying that he was raving about a spiritual coin and calling it too tacky. They speculated that maybe he simply didn't want the books, or maybe he didn't like them. One of them asked why he would buy everything if he didn't like it, thinking that he had perhaps forgotten the money. At that moment, a man in a monkey mask laughed and made fun of them, calling all idiots and adding another provocation. One of the men got angry and faced the masked man. The man in the monkey mask pointed at Lu Yu and laughed even more, saying that the black gauze he was wearing, something that no one knew where it came from, seemed able to mask his smell. He accused Lu Yu of perhaps being just a common person trying to infiltrate the world of the awakened. The others reacted disbelievingly, asking if that could be true. The masked man continued, saying that if Lu Yu knew what he was good for, he should take off his gauze, saying that at most they would beat him a little and expel him from the night market. He said that, on the contrary, Lu Yu would lose some members that day or die in the market, insisting that the decision would not even be of them. Lu Yu got up and turned around with a dark expression, saying that he was aware that they were threatening him. The masked man replied that it was not a threat. It was simply the truth. Lu Yu's expression darkened even more, while he was thinking internally, "Damn imprudent idiot." His aura exploded and his shadow servants lifted the masked man and threw him to the ground. Everyone was shocked. Some observers laughed, saying that it was a nobleman without a notion who dared to say anything. They ridiculed even more, saying that it was not surprising that he had chosen a monkey mask. Now he was thrown with the monkeys but on the ground. The man in the monkey mask squeezed his teeth and cursed everyone, declaring that he was the younger brother of his Fusu, and threatening that his brother would cut them. The little brother of his Fusu pointed the finger at Lu Yu, and tried to threaten him even more. One of the shadow servants of Lu Yu cut his finger at the same moment, making him moan in pain. Lu Yu ended the moment with a cold recognition, making it clear that he was very unhappy with the words of the man. Everyone at the meeting saw what happened, and reacted surprised. They commented on Lu Yu, wondering what kind of monster it was, and calling him the demon of the shadow. They admitted that their strength could not be underestimated, and noticed that their family did not care at all, concluding that the family had chosen the wrong target. The two men who were in the row in front of Lu Yu arrived, and one of them, who was a bodyguard, ordered that the crowd open the way. His boss watched the scene, and commented with interest that a shadow had appeared. Realizing that it was someone from that faction, the situation attracted even more attention. The seller turned to Lu Yu nervous, and asked what she wanted. She remembered that they were only a few volumes copied by hand, and offered that, if he wanted, he could take everything, clarifying nervously that that did not include his body. Lu Yu responded internally that, with that steel plate physique, he would never care. The seller was confused when she heard steel plate. Then Lu Yu showed an object, and asked if she could pay with that. When she saw the object, the girl reacted with an emotional avarice, recognizing that it was a complete distortionated spider poison sac. She explained that a technique of impeccable extraction, made with a special secret art, was extremely rare, saying that not even star-level specialists in the morning could extract one intact. She emphasized that an incomplete distorted poison sac was normally sold for 10.000 spiritual coins, and remembered that in the last auction, a relatively intact sack was finished off for 100,000 spiritual coins. Lu Yu was surprised, asking internally if the materials of a star were worth so much, concluding impressed that his ability to extract was really divine. She said that she would pay with that, asking if it was enough. The seller replied that it was more than enough, and that selling those books copied by hand for 100,000 more secret art would be unfair. She said that the books were not worth so much, and asked him to take them again, saying that she only gave a spiritual coin. Lu Yu thought irritated that she was only paying with that because she did not have a spiritual coin, calling the head a hard melon. Then she declared, bluffing, that she was funny, and said that she would accept it for now, because perhaps he would ask for other conditions later. The seller became nervous, imagining in a loud voice if other conditions meant something else, and said that she only liked people of her age, and that she only did that kind of thing with someone she liked. Apologizing for the assumption, Lu Yu interrupted her and criticized her internally for how much confidence she had to talk about her own body like that. She then introduced herself as her Shao King and gave the contact and the address. She said that, as she had accepted the poison sack, the notes were from him. At that moment, Su Hu's-ho arrived, ordering that everyone open space as an authoritarian boss. Shao King treated him respectfully as Su Hu's-ho, sir, and warned him that people in the family had arrived. He advised him to go to the center of the night market where the head of the market was, because there they would not dare to cause problems. Lu Yu asked if his family was very powerful. She explained that the patriarch, the old master Su, cultivated in the 9th grade for years, saying that it would not be an exaggeration to call him almost a morning star, warned Lu Yu that, although he was strong, his family was a great clan, and that if he did not leave immediately, it would be over. Lu Yu thought internally, if 9-degree awakening really counted as a great clan. Even so, he began to walk forward despite the tension. Shao King tried to stop him, but the shadow servant blocked his path. Shao King got tense and begged him not to face anyone, asking him to step back strategically, calling him older brother. Lu Yu thought irritated, since when the older brother of her had turned, and wondered if he had been a cunning strategist in his past life. Nearby, the little brother of his begged the older brother to take revenge, crying that Lu Yu had cut his arm and ruined his life. Shujo replied that he did not need to be remembered, and said that he already knew. Then he turned to Lu Yu and began to declare a punishment for daring to hurt a member of the Su family. However, he stopped immediately when he saw the crushing power of Lu Yu and the presence of the shadow servants by his side. In an impressive moment, Shujo grabbed his own brother by the neck and broke him, killing him instantly. He threw the corpse at Lu Yu's feet and knelt before him. As a subject before a king, Shujo trembled at admitting that he had failed to discipline his house, and that the young man of his family had offended Lu Yu. He claimed that he had executed him personally and begged for forgiveness. Lu Yu stood looking confused, thinking that the devil was doing Shujo, and believing that that script was wrong. It didn't seem like the one of a normal villain. Lu Yu said nothing, and Shujo got nervous, wondering why he didn't speak, and if he was not satisfied. Shujo gave money, declaring that his family was willing to compensate with 1,000 more spiritual coins, and asking if he was satisfied. He explained, desperate, that about what happened. He bet his life that his family had no intention of offending the shadow-cutting lineage. Lu Yu thought internally about that shadow-cutting lineage, and wondered if he was another weak clan like his. He imagined that the name came from the fact that they had confused his servant of shadows with one of them, and he thought it was right. He declared that that should serve as a lesson. Shujo immediately stated that they would leave. Then Lu Yu ordered them to proceed and leave. After that, Lu Yu left the place. A man dressed like a buffoon asked Shujo why he had killed his own brother. Shujo trembled in fear, and explained that they had almost fallen into a trap. He declared that the man belonged to the shadow-cutting lineage. The buffoon repeated the name, shadow-cutting lineage, with confusion. Shujo continued trembling, while explaining that the shadow-cutting lineage could use dark energy to refine, through rituals, special corpses, transforming them into dark sentinels that served the clan. He described the dark sentinels as born killers with extremely powerful abilities. He stated that the gigantic organization of assassins Mano Escarlata was spread throughout several countries and federations, capable of killing star-level experts in the morning. He added that, among the high-ranking, the 3 Red Moons, there were powerful members of the shadow-cutting lineage. Shujo explained that the shadow-cutting sentinels required immense energy to be refined, and that even the elite young people of that family could only have 1 shadow-cutting sentinel each. He recalled that day, the news of the wound of his son had been the first thing reported to him, and that the man had 3 complete shadow-cutting sentinels by his side, making his status clear. He believed that those individuals clearly had intentions against his family, and stated that, fortunately, he was traveling and attending to household affairs. Thus, the disaster had been avoided. His servant praised him, saying that the head of the family really had great vision. His Shujo then shouted, asking what would happen if, in the future, other people used the name of his to cause problems. He declared that he had an idea. He said that, as he had killed his own son, he felt guilty, and that when he returned, he would resign as head, allowing another person to assume. His servants tried to calm him, insisting that in no way, warning that they would be condemned without him. They said that the family would collapse without their leadership. Meanwhile, Lu Yu reflected on the situation and thought that, despite the small spectacle, there was nothing more worthy of a grade. He commented internally that the boy simply fled without even fighting, and that he could at least have pretended something. He felt that even a giant like the family had been intimidated, and thought about how terrifying that attack had been. Seeing Lu Yu's aura, Shao Qing was completely delighted. At that moment, a bodyguard approached Lu Yu respectfully and called him Lord, informing that the head of the night market wanted to see him. Lu Yu accepted and agreed. Shao Qing immediately offered to accompany him, calling him a figure, and insisting that he would go with him. While Lu Yu was walking, Some people murmured, observing that the man in yellow clothes was too mysterious, and that, even without saying anything, they felt the heavy chest as if something was pressing them that even made breathing difficult. They commented that no one would imagine an expert so powerful in a common night market. They described how the dark energy enveloped Luju like a black gas, making him look like a lord of the night, and that next to the yellow tunic, he looked something extraordinary. One declared that they could call him the king of yellow tunics. The others agreed that the name matched. Luju was escorted to the boss. When Li Qing entered, he watched him closely. Luju activated his temporary refuge. Inside him, a bee emerged. Li Qing felt crushed by Luju's aura. The shadow completely enveloped Qin. He grabbed his own hair while trying to understand what he saw. Describing it as a golden mountain of gold covering the sky, he felt that this could ignore past and future, and devour the time where he existed. He panicked, insisting internally that he needed to escape. Suddenly, blood dripped from Li Qing's mouth. A worm emerged from the blood. Bear Ghost immediately asked if his master was okay. Filled with anger, Bear Ghost prepared to attack Luju, declaring his indignation and intention. But Li Qing stopped him and ordered him not to be rude. Bear Ghost was confused, but obeyed by saying that he would follow the orders of the master. Li Qing then presented himself to Luju, identifying himself as Li Qing of the Federal Special Division, reporting to him with total respect and submission. Li Qing explained that he had accidentally captured a glimpse of Luju moments ago, and hoped that that was not taken badly. He tried to compensate for the previous offense, promising not to compete in the auction for the treasure, and share all the information he knew. Another man introduced himself as Ma Yang, and greeted the arrival of the master to the night market. He commented that everyone knew that the thieves had come after the treasure, and promised that if he received any update, he would immediately deliver it to Luju. Luju agreed. Luju wondered what treasure they were talking about, and why no one could explain in a way that he understood. He asked internally why everyone was so sure that he already knew about that treasure, and felt that they treated him as a perfect spokesperson, who had arrived at the exact moment. Yang looked at Xiaoqing curiously, and asked who he was. Luju explained that she had come with him. Yang agreed, but internally it seemed strange that a figure had brought a girl he knew in the night market. He was surprised that Luju had shared information about the treasure with her, and wondered if that girl had any special ability. Deciding to be cautious, everyone sat down at the table. Yang explained that it had all started a month ago, when the thieves stole a small caravan that carried 6,000 goods. Xiaoqing recognized the name of the thieves as human, and Yang asked if he knew them. Xiaoqing said yes, and explained that the thieves as human were a cruel band of criminals, not experts led by a cultist of an evil god. He described that, through a ritual, they became monsters with eye globes growing all over the head, and that each eye had a terrifying power comparable to secret techniques of some experts. After becoming monsters, they gained long longevity, but they were also cursed by an unknown evil god. He claimed that they could only survive by devouring fresh eyes of his own, otherwise his eyes and body would rot. He added that the more human eyes consumed, the stronger they became, which led them to attack villages frequently and become mortal enemies of humanity. Yang hit the table furious, declaring that the thieves as human deserved to die. He described how several of his caravans had been attacked by them, and claimed that stealing supplies was one thing, but tearing people's eyes ruined lives forever. Li Qing coincided with that feeling, and insisted that the thieves should be exterminated. Then he revealed that the most important detail this time was that, among the stolen goods, there was a dragon egg. Lu Yu reacted internally with amazement when he heard about a dragon egg, and thought about how incredible it was. He reflected that even the weakest dragon would produce at least a 2-star grade material. Xiaoqing asked how a caravan could obtain a dragon egg, and wondered if they had killed 2 adult dragons. He explained that he had heard that dragons deeply valued their progeny, and that anyone who tried to steal an egg would be attacked not only by parents, but even by an entire group of adult dragons. Li Qing clarified that the egg was not a pure dragon, but a hybrid between a male dragon and another creature. Xiaoqing interpreted that as a mestizo dragon, discriminated against by pure blood. Li Qing warned them not to underestimate a hybrid, explaining that his father had been a radiant moon dragon. He claimed that, when he had put Lu Yu to the test earlier, he had felt the phenomenon manifested, and that a treasure like that was something, so only someone of a radiant moon level, like Lu Yu, had the right to fight. Xiaoqing reacted shocked while thinking about the radiant moon level, a level above the morning star. and wondered if he was talking about his golden altaments. He thought it was incredible. He remembered how the figure he had bought his copy written by hand with twisted spider venom, valued at 10,000 spiritual coins, had shown such power. He wondered what kind of divine figure it was really. He thought the situation looked exactly like those opportunity encounters, described in novels, and wondered if that could be destiny. The destiny of a predestined benefactor who would take her to the top of life. Chung continued to say that the caravan had been dared to find the dragon egg unprotected and simply take it back. But unfortunately they ran into the human eye thieves. The only survivor had his eyes ripped off and survived by killing himself. He did that to spread the information, hoping that the treasure would attract strong individuals who would eliminate the thieves. However, the human eye thieves were cunning and had been hidden for a long time, without hunting human eyes recently. But since those thieves only ate fresh eyes, Li Cheng questioned how they could bear hunger. He suspected that there was an informant supplying them secret provisions, which led him to go to the night market to ask Mayang about cases of missing people in nearby cities. Lu Yu considered that if he obtained that dragon egg, he could at least get a star monster in the morning, one that he could even mount. He asked how many they were, and the threat was evoked. Li Cheng explained that human eye thieves were more than 100, and that his leader had eaten thousands of eyes. He estimated that the leader was around the star level in the morning, and therefore it was very dangerous. He pointed out that the star level in the morning meant nothing to Lu Yu. He added that, among the awake, many had already heard the news, but the majority still watched, and few planned to act. He pointed out that, for someone of Lu Yu's level, it was almost impossible to find him in a place like that. Lu Yu recognized that and asked internally what Li Cheng meant to say to someone of your level. He questioned if they were both stars in the morning. He recalled that no one could know what was really in the hearts of people. He observed that, although Li Cheng treated him with kindness, all of that was based on a misunderstanding. He asked if Li Cheng would try to kill him. If one day he discovered his true strength, he thought about how many tricks an expert of the star level in the morning could have and wondered if he would be able to block an attack at such a short distance. Li Cheng spoke with weight and explained that his spiritual energy had been seriously damaged. He said he expected to exchange the dragon egg for another treasure that could help him break his bottleneck. He complained that the barrier did not break, and that he did not even have a direction to follow. He claimed that he was 200 years old now, and that he was probably nearing his end. Ghost Bear encouraged him not to lose hope, and insisted that he would definitely be able to break it, and that Ghost Bear would continue to look for treasures to extend his life, even though he could not achieve it. Li Cheng threw away that encouragement, and said it was too difficult. He explained that low-level longevity treasures were useless to him, and that the highest-level treasures were guarded by monsters, which made them almost impossible to obtain. He admitted that he had lost his confidence. Lu Yu demanded to know what he had just said, and Li Cheng spoke about that where there was nothing, something was born, and where there was difficulty, to find a wise man. Lu Yu offered those words as a gift. Li Cheng was surprised to receive a gift. He repeated the sentence with a dark expression, saying that where there was nothing, something was born, and where there was difficulty, disappear, difficulty nothing. And then he screamed suddenly. Li Cheng began to react, like someone completely out of control, crying and screaming frantically. While Ghost Bear tried to calm him down, Ghost Bear squeezed his teeth and confronted Lu Yu, demanding to know what he had done to his teacher. Lu Yu responded only with a low laugh, but inside he panicked and wondered why they were blaming him, remembering that he had only said a random consolation phrase. After seeing how regrettable Li Cheng was, he reflected on how stubborn Li Cheng was, and questioned internally why, with the technological level of the first-class cities being so advanced, that man refused to look for mechanical immortality or quantum immortality, instead insisting on looking for longevity treasures. Then Li Cheng suddenly calmed down, releasing a wave of positive energy from within, saying that from nothing came the being, and from difficulty came. Quietly he let Jin and Yang turn in cycles while pretending to understand everything. Finally, he announced that he had reached enlightenment, and his energy spread throughout the area. Xiaoqin reacted enthusiastically, and explained that he had already read about that type of phenomenon, identifying it as enlightenment, and affirming that Li Cheng had broken his shackles and reached the awakening he wanted. Lu Yu observed that, and thought it was fine if Li Cheng had really reached enlightenment, but questioned internally about what exactly the man had enlightened, feeling irritated by the fact that Li Cheng had achieved enlightenment after reading only one line of the Tao of Jin, while he himself had read the entire book. without becoming immortal. The energy spread far beyond the market and reached the outside streets, where many citizens witnessed the phenomenon. They observed the enormous fluctuations of energy with amazement, photographing the scene, while expressing emotion by the intensity and scale of the burst energy. Some wondered if a treasure was emerging, while others found everything so spectacular that they already imagined how they would show the video to the person who had blocked them before. Bergos was deeply moved to see his teacher so happy, and threw himself at Lu Yu's feet, admitting that he had misunderstood him, and that he had been blind to his greatness. He begged for any punishment that Lu Yu considered appropriate, but he gave up the matter, saying that it was enough. Li Cheng expressed sincere gratitude to Lu Yu and affirmed that his skills did not know limits. He insisted that Lu Yu had seen through his duality ritual Jin Yang instantly, and that, without his help, he would have died before reaching spiritual ascension or entering the intermediate level of the morning star. Lu Yu internally questioned the meaning of the spiritual ascension ritual and wondered why everything in that world was accompanied by strange cultivative terms. Even so, he kept those thoughts to himself and said only that he had offered a simple suggestion. Li Cheng declared that if such small suggestions came from Lu Yu, he would be willing to listen to them for the rest of his life and stay by his side forever. Lu Yu rejected the idea internally, irritated, remembering that no one wanted to spend their lives with an old man of 200 years. Then the group realized that dawn was coming. Lu Yu commented that the day was about to be born and decided that he should return. Li Cheng offered to escort him, but Lu Yu refused. Li Cheng accepted and went aside. Lu Yu then mentioned that there was a junior who might need Li Cheng to take care of him, and asked for his card. Li Cheng promised to do his best to take care of that young man, adding that he was willing to offer the little strength he had whenever Lu Yu needed it. Xiao Qing remembered that he still owed him 99.999 spiritual coins and promised that he would run to him every time he called her. Lu Yu noted internally that those visits were starting to be a bit excessive. Lu Yu got ready to leave, and the three said goodbye. He went home, took off his mask, changed clothes, and sat comfortably on the sofa while reflecting on how perfect it had been. When he executed another costume, he felt that, if he did not continue a career as an actor and king of cinema, his talent would be wasted. He recognized that creating a powerful person hidden among backstage allowed him to intimidate others. From that moment on, he decided that he, Lu Yu, would enter the world of the awake under the disguise of a junior, making sure that no one would question his identity. He remembered himself that he only needed to wait for the right moment before acting and declared mentally that everything would begin now. Then he summoned his three servants from the shadows and ordered them to begin patrolling the city immediately. He explained that the eye thieves needed fresh eyeglasses. Therefore, they could not transport them at long range. Thus, any clues about human trafficking or eye thieves had to be reported to him immediately. The three servants turned into liquid and disappeared to fulfill the order. Lu Yu took a book, began to read, and learned how the system of the awake worked. Absorbing the details with growing curiosity,